first Atlanta race, I was able to run on the lead lap and finish in the top 5. That light bulb went off.
How do we do what Jimmie Johnson and Chad Knaus have done and not lay an egg?
What motivated me all those years was fear. When I stepped away, I didn't want to be driven by that anymore.
It was rare that I got to beat you like that. Welcome to Kevin Harvick's Happy Hour, presented by NASCAR on Fox. And today we have the 7-time NASCAR Cup Series champ, Jimmie Johnson. Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, glad to be here, man.
Yeah, it's I've had this one circled because it's fun to be able to go back and you know, you came up at the exact time period that I did, and being able to go through racing during that time. We got to race against so many cool generations of old, new, of all the things that it was. But just talk about where you started and winning 7 championships. That can't be what you thought when you started racing.
No, not even close. And you know, as we were coming up through the ranks together, we had plenty of conversations around like the dream and what it could look like, and I couldn't even dream this big.
Yeah.
So it's been a wild ride, and much like you growing up on the West Coast, being surrounded by motorsports and the different forms of racing, the different heroes that came along from dirt to 2 wheels, 4 wheels, asphalt, whatever it might be. I just grew up in a racing family. My dad loved racing, loves racing, very mechanically inclined. My mom even raced 3-wheelers back in the day.
Really?
Like grandparents at a motorcycle store. And so to grow up in that area and have the deserts nearby, the rivers, the lakes, you know, it didn't matter if it was summer or winter, we were on something that was motorized, and that really gave me a great base to go racing from. And
I think when you come to North Carolina, and you might think about this different, but when I came to North Carolina, we were fortunate that we were in a time when the Cup Series was looking for the next young drivers. But even when I go back now, it feels to me like they don't take West Coast racing as serious as what somebody who grew up there.
Right.
And it really pisses me off. It really makes me mad, because when I grew up in racing, you could race anywhere, anything, anytime if you wanted to go a couple hours in any direction. And, you know, I think that a lot of people get the misperception of what West Coast racing is, because there's a lot of gearheads in California. Am I thinking of that different than what you would?
No, I absolutely agree. And I feel like your journey, my journey, certainly Jeff Gordon kind of started that. I even think somebody like Tony Stewart was helpful because he came from a different background, Ernie Irvin. You know, I feel like we keep knocking down barriers, but still today, and even being, you know, on the East Coast as a team owner, for whatever reason, that West Coast seems so far away, and I'm not as connected as I should be and need to be.
Yeah, and I think even NASCAR, they've struggled with trying to figure out West Coast racing. It's a different vibe, but a lot of hardcore racers. So when we go back and we look at your racing background, where did all that start to be able to lead? I know this answer, but I know a lot of the fans, want to hear it. Where did it start to lead you to thinking that it might be able to be a possibility to make a racing career out of it?
Man, I was determined, in going back to my grade school, middle school, and high school, that all my teachers shared papers and pulled them out that it reminded me how determined I was. So the dream was always there, but it really all came together. I would say in probably 95 is when it really came together. And it was the combination of my relationship with Chevrolet and the new relationship that was building with the Herzogs. They were very successful in off-road racing, had been promised a lot by Ford and Dodge, which none of those opportunities ever came together. And I had some Chevrolet backing that I could bring to them. And I was doing television and doing pit road reporting for ESPN in the Midwest, this off-road series, and got to know them. And I knew who they were, but found out that they had these kind of broken promises from these other manufacturers, and kind of raised my hand and said, hey, I could bring Chevy. And sure enough, they all, everything came together. And they thankfully had the same ambitions to make it to Cup. And so off-road, ASA, Busch Grand National, And one of the toughest things for me to do was to go to them and say, "Hey, I've got an opportunity with Hendrick," because they invested tens of millions of dollars in me and so much time. But like the great, sadly, we've lost both Stan and Randy now, but they both supported me and said, "You've got to take that opportunity."
Yeah. Well, it's great when you find a group of people that believe in what you do and support, and then you build that relationship. And always those tough decisions are hard. But you talk about going to Hendrick Motorsports, and I think it's pretty well known that Jeff Gordon was behind you and saw the car that you were driving at one of the Busch Series races and recognized the car control.
That could have gone so wrong.
Yeah.
I threw a big slider on him at Michigan.
Yeah.
And if I collected him, man, no chance I would have got the ride. But thankfully, I just cleared him.
Well, it worked out.
It worked out.
But talk about that transition of going from the Herzogs.
Yeah.
You had, I would consider, it was a family-owned team that was trying to find their way. You had Crazy Rambo working on the car and trying to figure things out.
Yep.
And then, boom, you go to Rick Hendrick and Hendrick Motorsports. And what was that transition like to go from a family-owned team to the organization like Hendrick had?
Yeah, it was a big shock, to say the least. And I ran 3 races in 2001. And the team was still kind of coming together. We didn't have our full-time crew chief. Ken Howes was actually the crew chief for me for those 3 races, which was really cool.
That. Yeah.
But man, I think my best finish was like 2 laps down in 26th. And so that 01 year was like, wow, this isn't just a step up. This is 5 or 10 steps up to go cup racing. So I was pretty worried, and that worked very well because during the off season, once we had Chad in place, I just dug in and I leaned on the system that is Hendrick and wore Jeff Gordon out over ideas, notes, how he drives. And he didn't really even have notes going at that point in time, but I was extracting all this stuff and making my own. And man, I'll never forget the first Atlanta race, which was, I don't know, 2nd or 3rd race of the season. I was able to run on the lead lap and finish in the top 5. And I was like, this place is tough.
Yeah.
I ran around, Mark Barton all day long. I finished in the top 5. Like, I'm going to be okay. And that light bulb went off just to continue to lean on the Hendrick system and have them keep teaching me.
So you mentioned Chad Knaus. Was he intense right from day one?
From day one.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you look at that relationship, I know you pretty well. I mean, you're a pretty calm, cool guy, and he's pretty high-strung, straightforward, demanding, from the outside looking in the things that I've been. I guess the balance is what made it, because I feel like Rodney and myself were the opposite. He was the calm, cool, collected guy, and it just worked because I didn't want to offend him, but I wanted to do everything that he said, and I didn't want to do anything dumb to make him mad like I did the previous 13 years as I went through my time at RCR. So that dynamic obviously worked. He won 7 championships and 83 races. So it obviously worked, but from the very beginning, he was just the hard ass that came in to motivate and push you.
He was more than anything. He had a big chip on his shoulder. He, I think he was a frustrated driver that ended up being a crew chief. So you have that element.
I did not even know he drove.
Yeah,
He
wanted to be. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Did you hear the story where he backed Stacy Compton's? I think it was the Melling team that Stacy was driving for, and Chad was crew chief in it. They were at Milwaukee, and Chad was convinced that the car should have gone faster, or one of the changes should have made a bigger difference. Something happened, and Chad's like, "Get out, I'm getting in." He jumped in the car and backed it in the fence, turned for Milwaukee, and had to call the Mellings and tell them, "Oh, by the way, we crashed."
Is awesome.
Like, "Oh, well, that's fine. Stacy, okay." Well, actually, I was driving the car. It wasn't Stacy.
So did he ever drive your car?
No.
Ever. He finally gave up.
Yep.
That's funny.
And so there was that piece, which was a funny undercurrent between he and I that I could torture him on, but it was really never a public thing. But he wanted to be a crew chief, and the way Ray hired him, or one of the reasons Ray liked him so much, was he sat across the desk from Ray and said, "Look, I want your job someday. That's why I'm here and what I want to do." And so when he left the 24 car and tried to pursue his crew chiefing job or career, he had these failures along the way that just made that chip more pronounced on his shoulder. And when he got back to Hendrick, he knew it was his chance and his time. I certainly had my own chip on my shoulder in a different way where,
Yeah.
I got to Cup a little later than most. I was 25, 26 in my rookie year. I knew I was going to have one shot. And I really felt like 1 year. If I didn't perform that first year, I thought, Hendrick would move on. And so we had that common piece. And much like you and Rodney, although you guys were much different, the things that mattered were the same. Those core values and your ambitions as, together as a team, what you wanted to do. We went about it in different ways. And it sounds like you and Rodney similarly, but we had those core values together.
So when you look at the dynamic of that team, obviously you guys figured out how to win your first race and then you kept going. So when you look at the dynamic of the team, was it always Chad pushing the team and you, or when would you interject to be, okay, I don't like this? And I assume that was probably somewhat hard with Chad sometimes, and it would lead to a heated conversation.
He was good. I'm sorry. He was the bad cop. I was a good cop within the team.
Yeah.
And
exactly how I would envision that, by the way.
He did so much pushing that I didn't need to.
Yeah.
But I knew the way he pushed others, he expected that from me. And I felt like I needed to take some stress off of him, and I made sure that I had my shit together. And that was, the responsibility I took in hand. He'd nudge me occasionally. And there were certainly moments where it got heated and Rick would have to get involved.
Yeah.
But the great thing, and for so long, it was never personal. And it was also funny because when somebody says, I'm really, how would it go? When there's always that but, like somebody says, I really like what you did, but Chad always had that but that he would throw in. And our pressure in what we put on each other was fine until maybe 2 or 3 years left in our run.
Yeah.
And it became personal. Like I was afraid and frustrated that my career wasn't winding down the way that I wanted it to. Chad, the same. And so where we were always aligned and never kind of personally attacked each other, we started to indirectly. It wasn't something that we intended to do, but it became personal, and that eroded away at our success more than anything. And then eventually Rick separated us.
Yeah. And I think when you look at that run, you go and you win the 7th championship, which was probably at the end of the moments that you're talking about, because when you look at that, the end of that year, I don't know that anybody really expected you guys to go out and win that championship.
Shoot, even that night.
Yeah.
We were the 4th best playoff car there, and just circumstances developed for us.
Yeah. So you go and you win that last championship, and then you have the last 3 years. I think the last race you won was at Dover in 17.
Yep.
Yeah. And then you go through that last 3 years. That's like night and day from where you started, the run you guys went on. What was that time period like just for you personally and going through what was kind of a rebuilding process, it seemed like, at Hendrick in general?
Yeah.
And just what was that like to experience that those last few years based upon everything that you guys accomplished before that?
Yeah. I mean, it was tough to say the least. Change is always difficult.
Yeah.
I wanted to have my entire tenure with Chad at the helm, but it was just getting toxic and tough, and not only taking a toll on us, but our trusted staff around us.
Yeah.
Cliff Daniels was our first engineer, and he tapped out and said, "Hey, I don't like this environment and headspace. I'm going to go do sim work for Hendrick Motorsports." Came off the road, so we had a lot changing around us.
Yeah.
And then Chad and I are separated. Kevin Mendering and I start the season together. We just weren't gelling as we needed to. Cliff comes in, and I could see when Cliff came in, I grew up in a certain kind of system, and Cliff is that guy, and I needed that pressure from Cliff. And all that being said, there were a lot of great learning moments in that. But when the 2020 season started, I just knew that my fire had gone out in a lot of ways, and I just couldn't go any further. And I knew that Cliff was going to build the team that I wanted, the team that I could win an 8th championship with, but I just didn't have it in me anymore.
Yeah, and I think that's I'll never forget this. And we sat down to have our preseason meeting in 2015 after we won the championship, and we talked about our goals for the year. And the first comment that I said was, how do we do what Jimmie Johnson and Chad Knaus have done and not lay an egg the next year?
Yep.
Because you talk about the motivation and things that it takes to keep going in that fire. But I didn't want to be embarrassed of going out in 15 and saying, oh yeah, they won the championship last year and now they can't be competitive again. I don't know how many of those conversations or what motivated you. I can't believe what you guys did, but the motivation that it takes to win on a weekly basis in the Cup Series, and I talk about it on here all the time, about the younger guys not being able to manage their time and motivate themselves in order to put together 38 weeks. You guys put together 36, 38 weeks for a number of years. That takes a toll on you. And you just talked about that toll that it takes. When you finally said, okay, I'm to the point where I've lost a little bit of fire, don't know that I want to do this at that level anymore because I've already done everything that I can do and won 7 championships and 83 races and all those things. How do you turn a switch and say, I want to go race an IndyCar?
What motivated me all those years was fear. And fear of failing, fear of waking up someday and it was a dream. The fear that started all of this was the fear to be employed, right?
Yeah.
Like when we're teenagers and
how do I
eat? Like everything in my career has been driven by fear, and that just takes a toll on you.
Yeah.
And when I stepped away, I didn't want to be driven by that anymore. I didn't like kind of who I was becoming in the way my headspace was during the course of a season and living through those moments. Kids really helped define that. I'd realize and see, man, I just didn't handle that right, or I wasn't thinking right. My head wasn't right, whatever it was. So when I went IndyCar racing, that was the dream when I was a kid. And I'm like, my give a shit meter's broke. Like, I don't care. And I'm not driven by fear anymore. I want to enjoy, I want opportunity. And that's why I just kind of ignored, the challenge that I had ahead of myself and committed to it. Just went to go have fun.
Yeah. And I think when I look at it, just from the outside looking in, I'm glad you said that, because I've always just sat here and I'm like, okay, one of the greatest NASCAR drivers of all time. You went through the last 3 years of, now I know where you were mentally. And I look at it, I'm like, you didn't worry about your legacy. You wanted to go have fun, because Jamie McMurray said this a couple weeks ago on here. He said the biggest thing that he regrets is he didn't have fun and enjoy what was special about his childhood dream, being able to live that out. And that's, am I hearing that?
You're absolutely
out of your thought process?
And it's not a poor me thing by any stretch. Like I know you've experienced this as well, and it sounds like Jamie got into this headspace too. Very blessed and thankful that I've had this career path, but it's really driven by fear of failure, fear of mistakes, all these different elements. And you do lose the fun in there somewhere. And that's what I'm still trying to do now, and why I'm still hopping in a car. And I know it's not great for my statistics, and there are a lot of other ways to look at it, but damn, I just want to have fun. Yeah.
And did you have fun racing the IndyCar?
I did. At the end of the second year, I started to get serious again. And I had Carvana eager and ready and on board to sign up for a third year. Ganassi was hopeful I was coming back and expecting me to come back. And I got to that point again where I was being too serious about it and a little critical on myself and didn't like my headspace, and took another step away. That was it.
So now you've ventured into, you get done with the IndyCar thing, couple years kind of off, right?
Yep.
And then you decide, and now you're back on the team ownership side, back in the car. What was the motivation? Did you miss any piece of what was happening? Why come back and do the team owner thing?
I missed it for sure. Missed the people, and there's just a feeling of being in this industry. And as I was racing the IndyCar and spending time with CGR, there was an opportunity there to maybe control and run the 48 car in CGR and have ownership there. And as I look closer at it, as much fun as I was having and as interesting as it was, the financial piece without having a charter system, man, it just seemed like a tough road to hoe.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I've picked an easier road to hoe here with NASCAR and how complicated this is, but from a business opportunity, the NASCAR space made sense for a lot of reasons.
Yeah. And I think when you retired from driving, and now you've taken on a team ownership role. Would you classify it as a 24/7 job?
I think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's running through my mind right now is when you owned your team and seeing you and Delana.
You laughed at me.
And how stressed you guys were. I'd
Yeah.
laugh at you, and now here I am sitting in the seat.
Yeah, you laughed at me for a number of years. He's like, I don't understand why you would want to torture yourself like that. And now
you guys did such a good job at it too.
It's so hard.
You guys, you must have worked countless hours.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. And I think that for me, the biggest challenge or the thing that I like the most about the team ownership side was the challenge of pushing the pieces around and then getting to the racetrack and saying, I did it better than them. We're competing against Hendrick Motorsports. We're competing against all these teams that have done it for a long time. And now I look at your team, and you've been involved for a while now, but it seems like the performance is starting to shift into the right direction.
Yeah.
Is that a fair assessment?
It is, and it's been an evolution. I'm so thankful Maury Gallagher had an open mind and brought me in. As the minority owner and not having control of the company for a while, there's only so much that I could do. And Maury's philosophy and the way he likes to bootstrap stuff and make it happen. He won a race with like 65 employees. He won a cup race with Eric Jones in that first year of the next gen car. But as it's evolved and moved along, it's just a much different environment for a two-car team and head count and resources and all the different elements. So when he fatigued and brought this opportunity to me to kind of fast track my position, of course I jumped at it, but very thankful for the opportunity. We've done a lot of evolving and growing since Knighthead Capital came in as an investor and partner in the team. And headcount's gone up, our technology's increasing, our resources, and we're getting there. We still have a long way to go. As you so well know, it's all about people.
All about people.
And our recruiting window last year went well. We're running better this year. That recruitment window is going to open soon, and there's just a cycle here that we're working through.
So what's been the most surprising thing that you've had to deal with, just that you didn't expect? Is it the time? Is it the money, people? What's been the thing that you probably misread when you got involved from the ownership side?
How slow change really takes place.
Mm-hmm. It's a big ship to turn.
Yes.
And I think in today's world, it's probably hard to change the people.
Yep.
And even if you have all the money in the world, without the right people, like you're saying, it's impossible. So you're still driving some races.
Yep.
Do you have any more this year?
No more this year.
No more this year.
No.
Okay. So do you think that's helped you understand just what they're talking about in the meetings, and has it helped you as an owner?
Yes, it has. I have a better appreciation for what the drivers are experiencing and just how subtle. I mean, you hear the guys drop the back a half a round, and all of a sudden, car picks up 3/10. I'm like, there's no way that's what happens.
Yeah.
And then I feel it. I'm like, well, they're right. But with that being said, I have had far less time in the competition group than I have in the business ops group. Just the need to generate revenue and to help steer and run and operate the company. I just have had more time there, which has been interesting.
Well, it eats money.
It does eat money.
It's a money eating machine.
It's a hungry beast.
You get behind on that part of it, you're in big trouble.
The lights go out.
The lights go out and the performance goes down. And I think, from the driving standpoint, I look at part of what your success was in the Gen 6 car and the previous generations when you were at Hendrick Motorsports was car control. And I look at the first few races that you did in the next gen car.
Man,
it's an angry beast. When it decides to get sideways, you don't try to save it, you wreck it. And I watched Kyle Busch, and that was always his strength, was being able to go past that capability. Is that a fair assessment of the next gen car? And what do you think of the car and where it is today?
Yeah, it is a fair assessment. It's interesting being an owner and the way you look at your bottom line and
Mhm.
understand that a spec car, the way I look at it, it's kind of a soft cap that we have in the sport. There's only so many chassis we can have, only so many parts and pieces you can
Yeah.
buy. So it does provide help, and I don't think I would be a team owner if we didn't have this combination, this setup of a spec car. Um, I would like to see some changes. I think a car that gains side force and yaw is a better car, one that drives better, more interesting, and puts on a better show. This car does not do that.
Yeah.
But to make those changes in the way all three OEMs have to submit wind tunnel time, all the expenses that go with it, I know it's a slow moving machine. The other thing that I would like to consider is a taller sidewall on the cars.
Mm.
The lower profile sidewall, I think, takes a lot of the feel out of it and being able to slide it and understand it. But with all that said, a lot of these drivers have never experienced anything else, and certainly
Yeah.
the next generation that's coming in, and you watch these guys exploit it and go fast, and so it's wild how evolution just continues to move. And the things that I've always looked for, I mean, you can't make them go.
Yeah.
Even Chase Elliott, I had a conversation with him in Richmond Saturday night, and he's like, "Man, you just, it's not like it used to be. You can't
No.
drive them the same."
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that when you talk about the young guys, they don't know what they don't know.
Right.
And I think that's why you see some of these guys that have come in and it's kind of flipped the who's competitive
Really
piece
has.
of the puzzle, and the approach from the teams has been different. I think that this car has changed the dynamic of every aspect of what you race. So as you go into the future, are you going to run more races as you go into next year? And
Yeah, I would like to. I am finding that I am more impactful for the business side of the house,
Yeah.
out of the car and in the suite or in our hospitality area with our sponsors.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing that stood out to me last year, I ran the season finale in Phoenix and I had meetings with Toyota scheduled on Friday and Saturday. They had some issues, couldn't get to town. I couldn't have my meetings. The executive group is walking down the grid as I'm getting ready to climb in the car. I'm like, I should be in the suite right now.
Yeah.
And I'm climbing in this car to go slide around.
They want to have the meeting on pit road, and the next thing you know, you're worried about things that
all the different
are
things.
not anything to do with driving. But
Yep.
I think I'm happy that you're in the NASCAR garage. You're a part of the sport, because it's not fair to have a 7-time champion not in there all the time. When you look at Dale Sr. and you look at Richard Petty, I mean, you guys are in an elite group. And one thing that, and I've talked about this for a number of years, you were winning the most races. You'd won, didn't matter at that time, you'd won 4, 5, 6 championships whenever I've talked about this in the past.
Yep.
I always felt like in a sport, in other sports, one of the most popular guys is always the guy that's winning the most. When you look back at your situation with yourself, Dale Earnhardt Jr., and Jeff Gordon, do you ever wonder why that dynamic didn't always trend that way for you? Because for me, it was very confusing as to, and I look at it now. I mean, Dale Jr. is obviously what he is from a popularity standpoint because of his name and his success and the things that he did. But I always found that dynamic very interesting. Did you ever think about it that way, or am I just looking in at things that I should just keep out of?
No, you're right. You're definitely onto something. And you were years ago when we'd have these chats, and you publicly spoke about it as well. I didn't have maybe the environment that Jeff had with Dale in that passing of the torch, or whatever that moment was. The timing was incredible. Junior, sure, the last name, but the more I spend time around him and watch what he and Kelly are doing, they're smart. They are very
smart.
intentional. They are working their asses off too in this process. And when I reflect on myself, I had infrastructure, but all my infrastructure focused on was doing the bare minimum outside of the car so I could do the maximum inside the car. And now as I own a race team and realize the worth of the JJ brand, I haven't done a good job, like really blowing that up and leaning into it. Done a job, it's there, but it could be far greater.
Yeah.
I walk around at Richmond the other day. There are 7-time shirts for Dale, for Richard, all these other aspects of licensing. I have nothing there. That's my fault. Like I just haven't been working. I've been working on other things. So,
But that's the advantage of being the team owner at the racetrack.
correct.
And recognizing your brand, and almost now you're in there, almost
Now I
rebuilding
can see
it.
it differently,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, and that's the part that I'm really excited about right now. Is I want to build a motorsports property with Legacy Motor Club. I feel like there is a way to not be exactly like a stick and ball franchise, but there are many aspects that can be. And motorsports, it's a lifestyle, and there is a lifestyle branding opportunity that's here for Legacy. But before I really get there, I've got to make sure that my legacy and my brand is where it needs to be to then have it spill over into the company. And so that's the journey that I'm on right now.
Yeah.
And I'm finally seeing it because I'm on the other side.
Seeing it on the other side. And I think that many of us look back on what you could have done different, but that doesn't matter anymore if you learn from it and you grow with it. Because then when you get out of the car, if you really want to have a brand, you have to work at it as hard as you did when you started at driving.
So true.
And it's probably difficult from your standpoint because of the fact that you won so much and you had so many obligations, and so the sponsorship time was so much different
How
then.
much?
I mean, we would leave on a Wednesday, you'd go to an appearance, and then you'd go Thursday, and you'd get to the track, and so I think that's a pretty interesting perspective of an insight from what you've done.
What's wild is I wake up now as excited as I did as a 25-year-old going to work at Hendrick, but I'm doing all these things that I was irritated with before. And I never thought I wanted to be an owner. I didn't want to build a brand. I just wanted to drive. And it's wild to have this affirmation that I am doing the right thing and to have this excitement about the sport that I know and love so much. So I'm really energized and feel like I'm 20 again going through all this.
Well, that's pretty awesome. I'm glad you're having fun, because that's really what we're supposed to do when we retire.
Right?
And I tell people I retired from driving. I didn't retire from working because I enjoy the business aspect of it as well. Couple more questions. If you had to pick one race through your career, what was that favorite race?
Favorite race? I have to say my first win at California. The hometown, home track, I guess is probably a better way to say it. We're on 2 tires. Kurt Busch is stalking us, and it had a better car throughout the day. We ran well, but he's back there stalking us. And like seeing the white, I'll never forget the feeling and the tingles, like, don't screw this up, get it around, come down the front straightaway. Had family there and around, and also knew that I was going to have a job and stay employed. And all these different layers that were just like unreal.
Well, when you talk about California Speedway, that was my second go around with you at California Speedway. It was more exciting than the first go around when I didn't win the race. So I got to know, I guess it was 2011. I think it was when we raced there coming to the checkered flag. What were you thinking down the back straightaway? I pushed you all the way down the back straightaway. What were you? Did you think I was going to keep pushing you, or do you remember that thought?
Yeah.
Okay.
I remember the push,
because this is one of my favorite moments because of I got to race with you, and it was rare that I got to beat you like that.
I couldn't believe I left enough space up there from where I was sitting, because you had me going in there faster than I wanted to, and I thought I slid up enough to take the top because you were rolling the top. And then I heard outside, and I'm like, there's no way. And there you were.
Well, that was a pretty special moment because for me personally, California Speedway and being able to know the success that you guys had, and that was just 2 California kids going at it. So
How
that
far
was
is Bakersfield from there?
It's about an hour and a half.
Okay, so you're probably closer than what I was to San Diego. So I mean,
for sure closer. So for sure closer. But the home track for me was kind of the opposite, because you won so much there, and it was every time we were in position to do anything there, it went wrong. So it was, but that was a pretty cool moment, and one of those moments.
The horseshoe was the first one, right?
Yeah, the horseshoe. Yeah, that was funny. And I think that my second favorite Jimmie Johnson moment was 2014. I'm sitting in the lounge, and I remember it was like it was yesterday. We were struggling in practice. Side door of the trailer opens up, and here he comes in, eating an apple, sits down on the couch. What can I do to help you guys? And it was, well, you need to pull the side out. You need to do this. This is what my car is doing. Finished his apple, threw it in the trash can, walked out and said, if you need anything else, let me know. So that was really the beginning of the Stewart-Haas, the first year of the Stewart-Haas alliance that we had with Hendrick, and obviously that got a little more combative as it went through the years. Chad was not happy with with all those things that were happening with Stewart-Haas at that time. But those were two of my favorite memories that we had that we can talk about on this show.
I'll never forget walking through the transporters as we all have our little alleys to sneak around, and I knew you guys were struggling, and I just wanted to pop in and make sure headspace was good. Like
wasn't
noticed one thing that I realized in having a chance at those multiple championships, through them all, there still was the same amount of anxiety and stress. And then I also realized that my competitors all had that same anxiety and stress. And that was my goal, was to share like, hey, you might be having a bad day, but I promise you they're just as freaked out, even if they're having a good day.
Yeah, and I think that the other thing that I'm learning today is we're all more similar in the enjoying it part of what we do.
Yeah.
We work our whole life and dream about getting there, and then you're just frustrated and so ingrained in the competition side that you lose sight of the fun parts. And I think that's something for the young guys to take from this conversation. But last question, what was your first car that you drove on the street?
I had a 1986 Ford Ranger pickup truck.
Okay.
Yep.
Just standard pickup truck, because this sounds a lot like McMurray too. He's like, it was the most boring.
No, mine had a little lift
truck
on it. It was a black truck, had a little lift. Of course, a stick shift. And San Diego, you needed something with a little bit of lift and go out in the desert and bomb around. And also, there were a lot of dirt roads where I grew up in the rural area in El Cajon. So I needed something I could rip around on some roads.
Yeah. Did you wreck it, sell it?
No, I sold it to a buddy.
Okay.
I was racing the little off-road buggies, so I had some money and bought my first truck before I turned 16 and had it sit in the driveway, and I'd like wax it and wash it once a week. But my dad had a great piece of advice. I was starting to drive for Chevrolet, and he said, you should put some big blue oval stickers on this thing and park it right at the front of the test sessions. I'm like, why would I do that? I hide it in the back. He's like, because they'll give you a free truck. You're not going to drive for Chevy and show up in a Ford. I was like, damn, Dad, that's perfect.
That's
so
a
sure
great
enough,
idea.
I parked it right at the front of the test, and a week later, I had a new Chevy truck.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Well, thanks for taking the time. I know that you're busy, but it's fun to catch up.
Yeah, great to catch up, dude.
We appreciate the background. We could probably do this for 3 or 4 hours.
I'll come back anytime.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.